Hi there. So what is UDL? UDL stands for Universal Design for Learning. This is a framework designed to optimize the educational experiences for all students, regardless of background, strengths, needs, and interests. Think about your own educational experiences. Did you ever have a teacher that only lectured and you could never hear them? Or how about a course where you could never see how you would use this information in the future? Now, how did this experience affect your ability to learn? A curriculum designed by UDL principals will meet a spectrum of students' needs and not just the average by employing flexible goals and customizable options. This can include differentiating the methods, materials, and assessments of a given lesson. So, what are these UDL principles? There are three UDL principles. The first UDL principle is to provide multiple means of representation, or the what of learning. Students comprehend differently, so it's important to provide multiple means by which a student can grapple with the content. The second principle is to provide multiple means into action and expression, the how of learning. Students will have a greater chance of knowledge acquisition and presentation if they are given multiple modalities by which to do so. And the third and final principle is to provide multiple means of engagement, or the why of learning. Students will become more interested in and active in classes where the content is relevant to them. Now let's unpack this a bit to learn how you can use these principles. Starting with representation. There are three guidelines for representation listed on the left-hand side. The first one is options for perception. The second guideline is options for language, mathematical expression, and symbols. And the third guideline is provide options for comprehension. Focusing on the first guideline, options for perception, key information needs to be equally perceptible to all learners. This brings into question the equality versus equity debate. On the bottom of the screen, you'll see an image. On the left side of that image is the equality. Each student or each child is given the same stool, although not all are able to meet the goal of seeing over the fence. But in the right side of the image, the equity side, all of the children are able to see due to diversified means. Let's look at this in a little more context by following the story of a Spanish-speaking boy in his math classroom.
We're going to take notes from the story and we're going to turn it into a math problem and we're going to walk through it together, okay? So the boy ran 3 blocks. So everyone write 3 blocks.
I didn't even know he was like a stranger.
How long did it take him to run 3 blocks? Michelle?
6 minutes.
Very good, 6 minutes. All right, so then we're going to take 3 blocks and 6 minutes,
¿Por qué el
right?
niño corre con los bloques?
¿Qué?
Sí, ¿por qué el niño corre con los bloques?
No,
Okay, so the
corre 3
questions I'm going to
calles.
go on to ask us.
Though all the students have the same information, only some of them were able to understand it. This is why it's important to provide multiple means of perception so that our young student here would have been equally able to understand the question at hand. The next guideline for representation is options for language, mathematical expression, and symbols. One representation is not enough and needs more explanation and contextualization. There are several instances where this can be applied. Clarifying vocabulary and symbols by linking to other understandable concepts, representing structural relationships, decoding words, numbers, or symbols, and linguistic alternatives such as giving definitions in Spanish. For example, in science, we break down complex terms into the prefix or suffix in order to explain their meaning. For example, off to the right-hand side is photosynthesis. Photo meaning light, syn meaning with or together, and thesis meaning setting, putting, or placing. Putting each of these components together can make one of two definitions: light together putting, or putting together with light. And this helps explain how photosynthesis is the action of taking light and putting together compounds in order to create energy. The next guideline of representation is to provide options for comprehension. Teachers need to be able to transform accessible information into usable knowledge. They can do this by activating background knowledge, linking content back to big ideas, developing strategies for processing information, and generalizing information so it's easier to transfer. This aligns well with the push in education, specifically science education, towards building transferable skills over content memorization. The next pillar is action and expression. There are 3 guidelines under action and expression. Guideline 4, provide options for physical action. Guideline 5, provide options for expression and communication. And Guideline 6, provide options for executive functions. The first guideline, Guideline 4, provide options for physical action. This means going beyond just writing and typing. You want to be able to vary a person's motor means or the task in order to be able to create greater apprehension of understanding. This can also include giving access to tools and assistive technology so that tasks are accessible. This is especially useful in science laboratories where learning about a phenomenon does not reach the same level of comprehension as observing or testing a phenomenon. To learn more about assistive technology and how it can help students in the classroom, we're going to hear from a student called Ellie.
Hi, my name is Ella Gorman. I am 14 years old. I like to go shopping at the mall. I have 2 brothers named Cole and Carter.
Hi, my name is Jill O'Gorman and my daughter is Elle O'Gorman. She is 14 years old and diagnosed with cerebral palsy.
This is my Dynavox. I use it to talk.
Dynavox is an augmentative communication device that helps her communicate with us and her peers and at school.
When I look at a picture using my head mouse, the Dynavox talks for me.
Without the Dynavox, she had a difficulty communicating what her needs were. People tend to underestimate her ability or what she understood and what she was able to express.
I like to write emails with my Dynavox. Before I had my Dynavox, I used a laptop.
We started out with just a simple book chart that was broken into categories, and she would eye gaze towards the pictures that she wanted. From there, we advanced to trying out a Pathfinder, which had too many buttons for her and was a little bit frustrating for her. So we went to a laptop with a communication software. From there, we went to the Dynavox.
I am learning to use more buttons to tell people what I am thinking.
The school played a role in helping us find the Dynavox. The assistive technology specialist who's been helping the district, who helps Ellie, was very instrumental in helping us.
Ella was underestimated before having access to her assistive technology, and she was not challenged in school. As a result of her assistive technology, she's able to complete higher order tasks similar to those of her fellow students, such as speaking out loud and writing emails. The school played a large role in her ability to progress socially. Guideline number 5, also under action expression, is provide options for expression and communication. Oftentimes, students have a preferred or optimal way that they take notes or show their mastery of a certain topic. Teachers need to be able to accommodate for this and supply alternative modes of expression to students who have yet to discover them. This can be done by introducing students to multiple media forms of communication, tools for construction and composition, and by graduating the levels of support offered to students between more assistive and more freedom. As an easy employment of these tasks is to give options for student submission. If they have an upcoming assignment, provide students with a list of acceptable submission formats. It could be an audio recording, a video, a comic series, or the general notes as students may be more familiar with. The last guideline under action and expression is Guideline 6, provide options for executive functions. This guideline is primarily focused on higher order operations. Much like the last guideline, this too requires scaffolding by the teacher and heavy teacher-student collaboration. The teacher relinquishes some of their power to students by guiding goal setting, by having students develop strategies to reach those goals, providing organizational aids so that they can monitor their own progress, and providing feedback and monitoring students' progress on the teacher's end as well. These tasks are ordinarily completed by teachers, but as a future member of society, students will need to learn how to do them themselves. The next pillar is engagement. Engagement also has the three guidelines associated with it. Guideline 7, provide options for recruiting interest. Guideline 8, provide options for sustaining effort and persistence. And Guideline 9, the final guideline of the UDL framework, provide options for self-regulation. Guideline 7, provide options for recruiting interest. Interest is an important part of education because it cultivates attention and engagement from students. Interest can be accrued in several ways: by giving students choice in how objectives are reached, by providing relevant and authentic information to learners, and minimizing threats and distractions within the classroom. Referring back to Guideline 5, where I gave the option of allowing students to choose a format in which they would submit, this choice also incurs a level of engagement specific to science. Engagement could be accrued by revealing how students might see the effects of a phenomenon discussed in class in their everyday lives. Engagement and interest can also be superficially cultivated by theatrics on the teacher's part. However, this is not long-lasting. This leads us to Guideline 8. Provide options for sustaining effort and persistence. Many teachers take on this task on their own, but it is best done when students also play a role in continuing their efforts. Teachers can help students self-motivate and regulate by reminding them of their goals, varying the resources and challenges so that the students are never too overwhelmed, fostering a collaborative community, and presenting them with mastery-oriented feedback so that it is not about completing the task, but doing well on the task. Self-motivation and self-regulation are important outside of the classroom as well.
Successful people have strong self-regulation skills. They use them every day. The skills help them consciously direct, sustain, and shift their attention when necessary. They help them monitor and manage their thoughts, behavior, and emotions in this complicated world of ours. 3 of the self-regulation skills, known as executive function skills, are cognitive. These are used to monitor and manage attention, thoughts, and behavior. A 4th self-regulation skill is the ability to monitor and manage emotions. These skills are not inborn, but they are teachable, and we depend on them every day, especially when the going gets rough. Just like adults, when students are upset or angry, it's hard for them to use their executive function skills because their strong emotions take over. This can also make it difficult for them to listen, remember rules, and stay focused on learning. So, learning to monitor and manage emotions allows students to recognize their strong feelings and use strategies to calm down. Then, they can use their executive function skills again. And research shows students with strong self-regulation skills have higher academic achievement and are less likely to act in impulsive or aggressive ways, or to withdraw when overwhelmed. They're also more likely to get along well with others and have strong social skills.
Now that we know how important self-regulation is, how can we foster this in our students? Guideline 9, provide options for self-regulation. Teachers can build this skill in students by allowing them to manage their own engagement, by setting realistic personal goals, modeling their own emotional responses, and providing self-assessments and reflections as part of the lesson outline. These self-assessments and reflections can be intermediary during different stages of a project, as well as when hard concepts have just been reviewed. This concludes our UDL guidelines. This picture is a visual breakdown of the 3 pillars and their associated guidelines. There are 9 guidelines in total. I hope this helps with UDL understanding.